Why do grown-ass people sometimes act like children? Let's talk about it. I'm Dr. Maiysha, and one of the areas of expertise that I train and coach and teach in is emotional intelligence, how to translate that into our behavioral flexibility and trust and communication. And so I just recorded a podcast, a whole entire podcast on this. And if you don't already follow Behind Beliefs and Behavior, subscribe to Behind Beliefs and Behaviors podcast, it is your communication podcast. So check it out. Erickson's stages of development is just one of many models or frameworks for how we develop socially and emotionally. And so I'm going to talk about this in this context. It says that in order to progress from one stage to the next, there must be certain things that are provided by our caretakers or in our environments that allow us to achieve a sense of trust and autonomy and initiative and accomplishment. And when those things are not provided, it can leave us stuck in that stage of development. And so what happens is that as we grow older, we're still ruminating in this early stage, trying to work out, whether it's work out our own identity or work out this fear of failure or work out a sense of accomplishments versus failure, or work out a sense of feeling autonomous versus having self-doubt or having shame, or to work out the trust, who we can trust and feel safe around, right? We're still working that out even as we chronologically age. And so what happens is, even if we develop some skills around that, in times of stress, we will revert back to that stage, to that particular conflict. And that is why we sometimes see people who look grown and for the most part socially have adapted to being a certain age. When they're stressed or when they're emotionally dysregulated, they revert back to the age of a 6-year-old or back to the age of a 2-year-old or back to the age of a teenager. Okay. And so generally when that happens, there's something that wasn't heard, something that wasn't held, or something that is unhealed. And I think it's important for us to recognize this because it allows us to be able to interact with that person with more compassion and actually become curious about what it is that's not heard, held, or healed. Similarly, in ourselves, we may see these big reactions coming seemingly out of nowhere. But if we understand that our wounds from those earlier stages of development, the traumas that may have impacted those stages of development, that may have us still trying to work out an unconscious conflict in that stage, come up during those times of stress or emotional dysregulation, we can have more self-compassion and we can ask ourselves what needs to be heard, held, or healed. And we can take the actions consistent with that. We can communicate the boundaries consistent with that. So whenever you yourself get dysregulated, or you see or feel or notice a reaction come up that seems outside of the realm of usual, ask yourself that question: what needs to be heard, held, or healed? And consider that that may be you working out a conflict from an earlier stage of development that was impacted by trauma. And if you notice another person acting out and you feel you have the capacity, you might get curious either within yourself or when that person is back regulated again, the same way. What wasn't heard? What wasn't held in the communication? Or what wound might be there that needs to be healed? All right. And understand that this is not something that just impacts the individual. It impacts the family. It impacts us as parent to child or caretaker to child. And despite what most people may think, it also impacts organizations and teams. Because if you have a bunch of people that are stuck in early stages of development with wounds not being heard, held, or healed, who are flipping their lids because they're emotionally dysregulated and don't have the skills to be able to communicate or work through this, is what creates toxic teams and cultures. And so this is the importance of training your teams, training your communities, training your leaders, training your organizations in emotional intelligence and trauma-informed communication. So if this is a conversation that holds value in your organization, that you are talking about, I invite you to invite me into a conversation of all the ways we could potentially work together, whether it's individual coaching, group coaching, or workshops and trainings. All right. And you can do that by contacting me directly on whatever platform that you are listening, or you can reach out to me through my website, Mind Remapping Academy. So start listening. What needs to be heard, held, or healed in yourself? Get curious about it in another. And until the next time I see you, stay empowered.